Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening again, and thanks for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Show times, no changes. APB 5:30, same thing for KUAC on 9.4. 7:30, 360 north, although I believe they repeat the Friday show both Saturday and Sunday, but tomorrow should be updated. And then 5 a.m. following morning for Alaska Public Media, and by 8 p.m. all uploaded to YouTube. Today, satellite imagery showed front here pushing into the southeast coast, just kind of a average system, some winds and some rain, but nothing heavy in either case. Also coming up to the North Gulf Coast and extending back down in toward Bristol Bay. Looks like a low center there, southeast or east of Kodiak Island, right in this area, kind of pulling up to the northeast, and then a wave here riding up into the North Gulf Coast there, and then another system right down in there. Back out to the west, lots of cold air continues to pour out of the Russian Far East, right down across the western central Bering Sea, southward across the Aleutians. And this easterly flow here meeting up with the cold air, and that's that band right there of pretty strong winds across the Pribilofs with snow showers and areas of snow, mostly still in the form of rain across the eastern Aleutians this afternoon, but snowfall levels starting to get pretty low there, probably down to under 1,000 feet at this time, with the northwest winds again, storm force northwest winds blowing across especially the western part of that area there. And less wind, again milder temperatures, areas of rain across southwest Alaska here, mostly the Alaska Peninsula up toward Iliamna Lake and those locations, as well as the Kenai Peninsula. Farther to the north, just some clouds north of the mountains there, mostly mid and high level clouds all through here, with the precipitation producing areas, Kodiak Island, and up right along the front there along the coast. And then down across the Panhandle, front moved in, changing to showers this afternoon, especially down about Sitka, on down across Prince of Wales Island. But just again, mostly cloudy, becoming partly cloudy in areas there over the central interior, mostly here over toward Eagle and then back to the west. A few flurries, patchy fog, but nothing significant there along the eastern Arctic coast. Although this trough back through here brought a little more extensive area of light snow to the western areas there where it's shaded in turquoise, and snow showers as that cold air passed out over the Bering Sea warmer water there, picking up a lot of moisture. So numerous snow showers around the Pribilofs on down, and not quite cold enough for snow across the eastern Aleutians yet, but snow showers out to the west, and kind of a mixture rain and snow with that weak warm front pushing in toward Chimia this afternoon there, but winds not all that strong, but starting to pick up here along the southwest coast and starting to diminish now up around St. Lawrence Island and through the Bering Strait. Not much gradient up there along the Arctic coast, but again the winds here the strongest, up to 60, 65 miles an hour in gusts around the Kulski today with the storm warnings there. And that whole pattern will be shifting eastward over the next, well, for tonight. These winds will pick up here and become stronger across the Alaska Peninsula and then begin to diminish back out to the west, turning westerly, maybe dropping down to 20 knots for the central Aleutians, and then some moisture spreading in, but again, nothing heavy with that warm front trying to push in toward AKwx, but definitely rain and snow and warming temperatures there for Shemya. Quite an area of snow showers or snow here, especially along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, up across Bristol Bay, and then back to the north there, kind of the one trough here rotating up to the north. So areas of snow showers back up to the northeast there, maybe from Northway, trying to spread up toward Eagle. But again, nothing heavy at all. And another trough pushes up to the coast here, so rain, showers, possibly mixed with snow over the northern southeast coast there, and kind of a mixture of precipitation for the North Gulf Coast, depending on your elevation again. And that'll extend down toward Kodiak Island with still pretty brisk winds here for the North Gulf Coast, but under gale force. Definitely gales here for the Alaska Peninsula tonight as that stronger wind field shifts eastward. And then for tomorrow, continues to edge eastward, but not all that much. We still have a low southeast of Kodiak Island, so southeast flow will keep surges of moisture rolling into the North Gulf Coast, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, and also in across the southeast coast, with the interior looking pretty light on the winds, but we still have an area of possible snow showers here from the eastern interior, mostly along the Alaska Range on down in toward Bristol Bay with the stronger winds. Again, more numerous snow showers, possibly continuous there from about Igigik all the way down to, well, possibly Falls Pass. But look for winds gusting through the passes tomorrow, possibly as high as 65 miles per hour here, with good full gales out in the marine areas. Lighter winds up to the north now and scattered snow showers, maybe some clearing right along the coast here. Higher Percy to the west, beginning to push eastward and build in as another system pushes into the western Aleutians. Look for mostly rain and gale force winds with that, but then it weakens and moves northward into the the central Bering Sea here. So it'll push a rather weak trough into the Pribilos for showers. Could start out as snow, but that southerly flow definitely will warm temperatures up. But whatever gets up to St. Lawrence Island, at least through Tuesday, will be in the form of snow, and probably only looking at 25 knot winds out of the southeast here in advance of that. So really not much of a wind or precipitation producer. But high pressure now, fairly strong ridge from the southwest interior right down across the Alaska Peninsula. So light winds, clear skies, and definitely colder temperatures with this as it moves in. To the north though, kind of a trough right through here, cyclonic flow, so mostly cloudy. Chance or areas of light snow from the upper Yukon Valley back up to the western Arctic coast, and maybe a few light snow showers lingering there around the central coast. Otherwise, Copper River Basin into the 40-mile country looks pretty good, dry, but as the trough comes through, chance of snow comes across the Susitna Valley either late tomorrow night or early on Tuesday, and a chance of snow over Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet, Madanuska Valley, especially up along the Chugach and Talkeetna is see the best chance. Otherwise, kind of mixed precipitation farther south over the Kenai Peninsula. Dry for the southeast coast to start with, but this next front, again, not very strong. That'll bring a chance of a little bit of rain into the southern areas during the afternoon hours, but definitely pick up in the winds here now with that north to northwest wind, possibly gale force for Kamishak Bay, maybe the Barren Islands, definitely an increase in the northwest winds, Kodiak Island or north-northwest. Otherwise, temperatures this afternoon for the Panhandle, again, all in the 40s today, 46 at Annette, Klawak, Sitka, and Juneau with 43 at Yakutat, upper 30s, lower 40s from the North Gulf Coast with Cordova at 38, but Valdez is up to 41, as was Seward. 20s in the Copper River Basin. Temperatures range from 11 at Tok and also at Fairbanks to 27 at Delta. Back down to 20 at Tanana, and then 17 once again there at Bettles. 1 above 0 for Anatuvik. Umiat Airfield, 11 degrees. A little cooler here along the central Arctic coast now. Into the mid-20s yesterday, down to 16 here this afternoon at Barrow, but still in the lower 20s on the east side. Colder air back out here to the west, and that's reflected at 10 degrees at Wainwright. Lower to mid-20s here over the northwest. About the same for the Seward Peninsula. Under 20 though there at Wales, 16 Savunga, and again 18 degrees at McGrath, but 20s all the way out to the southwest coast. And look like lower 30s there, those strong north winds and mostly snow showers going on there for the Pribilofs. 40s still under that warmer east-northeasterly flow for the peninsula, and upper 30s for the Aleutians. Otherwise, Bristol Bay near 39 at King Salmon. Port Allsworth, farther north there, had 46. Lows tonight, single numbers through much of the eastern and north interior there, all the way out to the Arctic coast, be in the lower teens, and teens to lower 20s to the Seward Peninsula. Teens and lower 20s here, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. 30s for Bristol Bay. Mid to upper 30s for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. And then for tomorrow, highs all in the 20s here over the southwest interior, right up the coastline. Teens east, and then south of the mountains again, upper 30s to lower 40s, say at Kenai, 44 at Homer. Kodiak about 45 for the highs, and mostly in the 40s, lower to mid for the southeast coast. And then these temperatures will be even colder on Tuesday as that area high pressure builds in. And for flying weather, starting out, got a lot of IFR up there north of the Brooks Range, all the way out to the Arctic coast. IFR here over the eastern interior areas, and also along the North Gulf Coast over to the east side of the Panhandle. And then with that northwest wind flow picking up, you're going to see IFR in the increase there from, say, King Salmon right on down the peninsula, becoming marginal here for the western peninsula, and marginal VFR for the eastern Aleutians and the Pribilofs. So tomorrow afternoon, that should change shape a little bit, becoming VFR here for the Bering Sea, St. Paul, St. George, and Novak Island, down across Unalaska, Nikolsky, into the Alaska Peninsula, but still IFR there on the north side of the peninsula from about Nelson Lagoon, again right up toward King Salmon. A zone IFR right through there, and still up there mainly on the western central Arctic coast, on down across much of the North Slope, and looks pretty good. Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, as well as the southeast coast. Passes Anaktuvik, VFR tomorrow, both Radigan and Anaktuvik. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasional marginal VFR throughout the entire day. Rainy, any marginal conditions will mostly be off to the west, otherwise VFR. Windy, occasional marginal VFR. Isabel, same forecast, just occasional marginal conditions. Mentesta, starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, marginal VFR. Possible IFR on the eastern entrance yet. Otherwise, Chilkoot and White looking pretty marginal. Freezing levels late tonight, early tomorrow. I've got a pocket there about 2,000 feet, almost right up over the central interior. But much colder air back out to the west here. So 2,000 feet here, right around Kodiak Island in the peninsula, south of the North Gulf Coast, cutting through the Panhandle. And for icing tomorrow, above about 3,000 feet here from the Kuskokwim Valley, down across Bristol Bay to the Alaska Peninsula, and mixed icing areas of there possible of mostly the light variety above about 5,000 feet for the Panhandle, in across Prince William Sound, and then with that next system out to the west, areas of rime icing coming eastward with that. And upper level wind flow chart, jet stream still well to the south here, cutting off any big moisture. So the southwest flow, a wet pattern for the Panhandle, but nothing heavy in the way of precipitation. Otherwise, light flow through the interior. Southerlies there along the coast at about 70 knots. And for 3,000 or 9,000 feet, 25 to 30, not all that strong, but picking up to 40 knots here, Bristol Bay across the Alaska Peninsula. Still easterlies along the North Gulf Coast as high as 45 knots, 35 knots becoming northeast for the Kodiak Island area, and 50 knots pressing in toward the Aleutians. And for 3,000 feet, 15 or 10 to 20 knots here across the Panhandle, 35 knots southeasterlies turn easterly, drop back to 25 knots, and pretty strong winds again from the southeast bearing across the Alaska Peninsula. 35 to 40 knots, looks like the strongest wind max now is south of the area. Light variable winds here over the interior, actually all the way up to the Arctic coast. Still a little brisk up there, northwest coast over Kivalina. And for turbulence, pretty smooth for the Panhandle. Occasional light to very isolated moderate chop from about Yakutat westward across the Kenai Peninsula, north side of the Bristol Bay zone here, occasional moderate chop and some mechanical turbulence also in store for the Alaska Peninsula, with those northwest winds blowing across the terrain, letting up over the central Aleutians, and this zone heading eastward with head of that front that's moving into the western Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back in the marine forecasts.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it, as always.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks. And, you know, we're going to ask you some more satellite questions here, but, you know,
Okay.
Since you're a regular guest, we're going to give you a riddle this time, kind of a trick start to the show.
Okay.
How do you see a polar bear in a snowstorm?
Sounds like a challenging question because
Okay.
the polar bear is white and the snowstorm is white.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, in the world of satellite meteorology, you couldn't, because the spatial resolution of this instrument that we're going to talk about today has 375 meters resolution, and even the most well-fed polar bear will not be 375 meters across.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to run into such a
No, it'd be a
creature,
bad day.
would you? In the satellite meteorology world, the equivalent would be, how do you tell the difference between clouds and then an area that has no clouds but is covered by snow,
Right.
a piece of ocean that has no clouds but has sea ice? All three of these are white. The snow, the clouds, the sea ice, it's all white. So how, using satellite data, can you tell someone where the clouds are and where the clear areas are? This is important for aviators. Mariners want to know, in the ocean there, this white stuff, is that sea ice or is that just a cloud? How do we tell the difference? And it turns out, if you look, say, at a picture of Alaska from the springtime, March or April, and it's high noon, so we're getting a lot of sunshine. If you were riding on a satellite with your human eye, look down, everything's white.
Right.
And we've got a picture of Alaska from early April, and we're seeing some of the lower elevations in south central Alaska are melting out, getting some brown ground there, but otherwise there's a whole lot of white on the image. What areas are cloudy, but what areas are clear and covered by snow or ice? It turns out that if we leave the visible spectrum behind a little bit, see, a satellite has multiple channels in the electromagnetic spectrum that it can look at. Part of that's visible light, what we see as humans, but there's a lot going on at other wavelengths. If we add in something that's called near infrared, what we couldn't quite see, but we're getting into that infrared territory, there's a magical property that we can exploit.
Secrets to find.
Oh yeah. This is actually powerful and almost magical, that at a slightly longer wavelength, when the sun shines down on Alaska and then it bounces off back to the satellite, at that near infrared wavelength, it turns out that snow and ice will absorb that wavelength, but liquid water, like liquid droplets in a cloud, will reflect it back. And that's not the way it works in visible. You know, visible, it just bounces off of all those targets the same. But at near infrared, snow and ice absorbs it, and the liquid will reflect it back. Liquid cloud droplets will do that. And so an image where everything looks white suddenly becomes colorful. And the way this recipe works is that the clouds look pink, and the snow-covered ground and the ice-covered ocean look blue. Suddenly now, we're able to see the polar bear in the snowstorm. We're able to see where the clouds are and where the snow is and where the ice is. This is a powerful advantage. Consider the case zooming into the Bering Strait area. What if you were asked to brief a pilot who wanted to fly, say, from Kotzebue down to Savunga or Gamble and had to fly VFR, visual flight rules, so they had to stay out of the clouds? Could you use a satellite image where everything is white to provide that pilot any guidance?
It'd be pretty tricky.
Very tricky. And that's why we have to go to this other recipe where the all-white polar bear in the snowstorm becomes more colorful. And now we can tell the pilot, aha, this is a cloud you want to stay out of, but over here, sure, it looks white in the visible spectrum, but what we're doing, we'll show you, oh, this is just snow-covered ground, but it's clear, so you can fly right through there, visual flight rules. Same thing for a mariner who might want to get down to St. Lawrence Island, say, but has to avoid the sea ice. This product has applicability there as well.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing new technology, so many new channels. The satellite that makes this imagery actually has 22 different channel set of looks at
22
bands.
secret decoder rings.
22 secret
I love
decoder
it.
rings.
Okay. You know, I liken this to an activity I had in the car when I was growing up. We go on long car rides, and we do all the work in these activity books to, you know, stay calm, cool, and collected for our parents who are trying to get us across the state. But to get the answer, the real answer, you had to apply that red sheet to see the answer or the secret path or whatever the message was in that activity book to get you onto the next page. And it's also like a photography filter, right? If you're taking a lot of pictures, you can apply different colors to see different parts of that image. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Oh, you know it. The information is in there all along. We just have to combine the channels in a way to reveal what's in there. And by the way, you're dating yourself. So you didn't have an iPad in the back of the car?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we have, lastly, for dessert.
Okay.
There's a great image of the same kind of recipe. We're looking at South Central Alaska the first week of January. In first week of January, the sun, even at noon, is really low on the horizon, barely up. And in this image, the fun thing is the shadow of Dehne. We can see the shadow of Dehne over a lower pink cloud deck.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Dehne at 20,000 feet casts a big shadow. So this is another, just for fun, kind of application here. This is called multispectral satellite imagery, and it's the future. And happily, the future is now.
Oh, that is fascinating. And 22 different secrets that can be revealed from just one satellite tool that's floating overhead. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. We can't wait to have you back and telling us more secrets of satellite technology that are passing over us every single day, many times a day, over Alaska and helping us all the way in many different parts of our lives. So thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, happy to be here.
All right. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with a little more weather here in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll have more Alaska weather facts anytime online.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis here showing a continuing increase there out along the Arctic coast and a little bit back to the west here. Also over the Beaufort, or the Chukchi Sea. And that's expected to continue to increase over the next few days here. You can see ice now, Kotzebue Sound in through here, also northeast Norton Sound, and down along the southwest coast here, and even a little bit there in toward Kuskokwim Bay. And for a marine forecast, south winds 25 knots, southeast small craft advisories there for the north coast, south 15, Lynn Canal picking up to 20 knots for Stevens Passage, and then we've got small craft advisories out for Clarence Strait, which drop back to about 20 knots from the southeast on Tuesday, southeast 20 for the south coast, and then 25 knots here for the central and north coast, more easterly up in this area, and the winds go back north, but they stay light here for Lynn Canal, northeast 15 for Stevens Passage. Prince William Sound, east winds 30 knots, so that probably means gales here along the North Gulf Coast out of the east becoming northeast, north at 25, east side of Kodiak Island, as well as Shelikof Strait. Northeast winds increasing to 20 knots for northern Cook Inlet, and by tomorrow afternoon should be northeast 30 knots for the southern inlet on into Kamishak Bay. Then we've got gales out for Tuesday, higher pressure building in, enough of a gradient, north become northwest, 35 knots as that cold air flows in. Across the Barren Islands, northwest 30 Shelikof Strait, 25 knots Kodiak. East-northeast, 30 knots for the North Gulf Coast, and lighter northerlies for Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay tomorrow, north 25 knots. Full gales here blowing across the Alaska Peninsula. Again, could see gusts 55 knots in the bays. A little bit under gale force here from Castle Cape up to Sitkinak, but again, that whole pattern shifting eastward, so we'll bring 40 knots into that zone for Tuesday, north 30 Bristol Bay, and starting to edge down here for the Alaska Peninsula, 30 to 35 knots so throughout much of the day from the northwest. And the eastern Aleutians, especially on Alaska Island, northwest 30 to 35 knots. Dropping off, southwest 20 for the central Aleutians. Head that next front, we've got 40 knot winds pressing eastward from the Shimei Attu area. And then small craft advisories here for southerly winds, central Aleutians, northwest out in the western zones, and then ahead of the front, southeast 15 to 25 knots. And for the southwest coast, gales right out of the northwest tomorrow, seas 10 to 12 feet, coming down to 25 knots. Could even drop under that tomorrow afternoon there for St. Lawrence Island, 20 knots for the central or the northern Bering Sea down across the Pribilofs. And then on Tuesday, got that next system pulling northward across the western Bering. So south 25 for both the Pribilofs and St. Matthew Island. Southeast 25 for St. Lawrence Island. And then south to southwest at about 25 knots for the coast. Up along the Arctic coast, easterly winds at 15 knots here from the central area all the way to Demarcation Point, and northeast 15, 4-foot seas on the west side, and then still heavy freezing spray here in this zone as those northwest winds continue to blow strong enough for small craft advisories. Drop back, become more westerly on Tuesday, and kind of a system right in through here, so looking at southeast 15 for the western coast, east 10 for the central coast. Otherwise pretty light, mostly easterly flow there. Again for the east side, seas coming down, ice covered now over for the extreme eastern zone. And for tonight, first trough kind of shifts up here, so areas of light snow or snow showers, and I emphasize light, becomes a little more continuous. Of course, stronger winds out here now moving to the Alaska Peninsula along with colder temperatures, and improving though back to the north, and still stays wet along Kodiak Island as well as the North Gulf Coast. And then for tomorrow, maybe a little less in the way of precipitation here, but these troughs continue to swing up toward the coastline as well as into the Panhandle. Variably cloudy for the interior, areas of light snow mostly along the Alaska Range and up along the Brooks Range. Light stuff for the Arctic coast. Strong winds can gust 65 miles per hour across the Alaska Peninsula with most of the snow on the north side. And the system out to the west here, definitely stronger tomorrow, but by Tuesday it really weakens and slides northward here. That allows this high to build in over the southwest and western interior. So much colder temperatures, but clearing skies. Chance of snow east of the Alaska Range. Thanks for joining us. See you again.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Are your ducks in a row? Almost half of Americans do not have a proper estate plan. Estate plans are more than matters of money and inheritance. They can guide your future health decisions and provide special instructions for loved ones in your care. Put your mind at ease by getting your ducks in a row today.
To receive a free financial planning and record workbook, contact me, Chris Rogness.